In 1943, a steel mill worker's wife named Margaret in Gary, Indiana, kept a small wooden ledger on her kitchen table. Her husband earned $28 a week. $12 went to rent. What remained fed 4 people and bought her modest entry into the war bond system. By 1945, Margaret had quietly saved $312. Not by sacrifice, not by doing without, by knowing something her neighbors did not. She budgeted twice every week, once in dollars, once in points. The arithmetic was different. The discipline was identical. Her neighbors called her thrifty. They did not know she was running a system that would define the entire wartime economy. She simply called it Tuesday. These women did not look like they were building anything. They looked like they were surviving. To the mailman, to the grocer, to the man in Washington, they appeared to be making do with less. The truth was stranger. They were not managing scarcity. They were managing a dual currency system that required the arithmetic of a banker and the intuition of a chess player. It had no name. It had no headquarters. It worked. We threw every one of those systems away the moment the rationing ended. We called it progress. We called it modernization. The women who fed families on $8.40 a week called it survival. And survival once lost becomes a ghost story we tell ourselves. We assume we would remember if we needed it. We would not. The arithmetic of 2 budgets, one in money, one in points, is not something you rediscover in a crisis. It is something you practice until it becomes your reflex. We no longer practice. Number 24 on this list reveals the exact trick that saved a woman $4.60 per week simply by reading the newspaper differently. Number 18 was the strategy every housewife in Detroit used until the OPA spent 2 years trying to stop it. And number 5, the hidden barter system, more common than actual money for goods trading, created an entire shadow economy that federal investigators gave up enforcing because they only had 3,000 agents for a nation of 140 million people. Hit subscribe. Let us count down the 47 wartime women's money secrets that kept families alive and still work today. A shipyard worker's wife in Baltimore, Maryland, kept a small notebook on her kitchen windowsill in 1944. Every morning, before shopping, she opened that day's newspaper. She did not read the headlines. She read the OPA price announcements. Every 2 weeks, the government reset point values. A can of peas might drop from 18 to 14. A jar of pickles might climb from 8 to 11. Most women ignored these changes. Margaret did not. She tracked 6 categories of canned goods on a single page. Every Wednesday, she rejiggered her meal plan based on which items had lost value. She saved 19 cents that way. Not much, but 19 cents multiplied across 52 weeks meant 1 extra war bond coupon. The Office of Price Administration's 1944 household survey noted that women who tracked point fluctuations reduced their weekly food budget by 4.7% compared to static planners. The points told her what to cook. The points did not tell her what her family needed. She provided that. Washington set the system. She set the menu.
A factory girl in Detroit, Michigan, who worked the night shift at an aircraft parts plant in 1943, was paid every Friday. She earned $31 a week. But she did not have one budget, she had 2. The first ledger was for dollars, rent, gas, shoes, soap. The second ledger was for points, meat, canned goods, butter, sugar. Every item lived in both systems at once. A can of beans cost $0.12 and 8 points. Miss the points and you could buy nothing regardless of money. Miss the dollars and points became worthless. This double accounting tortured housewives nationwide. The War Production Board reported in 1943 that the average housewife spent 4 hours per week managing 2 separate budgets. This was considered normal. What was not normal was doing both perfectly. Those who did saved, on average, $0.68 per week, enough for a single war bond stamp. Those who did not spent $0.95 on duplicates and waste. She kept 2 notebooks. The arithmetic was her superpower. A Navy wife in Norfolk, Virginia, named Ruth, found a butcher in 1942 who would not look her directly in the eye. That was the sign. His name was Henry. He kept odd things behind the counter: liver, kidney, heart, tongue. These were not rationed, they were despised. Most customers threw them away. Henry saved them in a wooden box. Ruth came in every other Monday. She asked for her ration of meat. Henry gave her the good cuts everyone wanted. Then, quietly, he reached beneath the counter. For the family, he said, 1 pound of liver, 1/2 pound of kidney. She paid the ceiling price, $0.31 per pound. At no point was anything illegal. He was simply selling what would have been waste. She was simply buying protein that had no government coupon assigned. These relationships existed in every city, in Cleveland, in Pittsburgh, in Mobile. The butchers were not rebels, they were merchants. The government did not forbid what they sold, they forbade only the waste of it. Ruth's butcher was simply preventing that waste, 1 customer at a time. The government told her what she could buy with her ration book. It did not know what she could buy with patience. A mother of 3 in Akron, Ohio, named Dorothy, lived 2 doors down from a woman named Helen who had no children. The women did not speak of it. They did not need to. Dorothy had a surplus of milk and egg coupons her children received. Helen had no one to use them. Every month, Helen gave Dorothy $2.40. Every month, Dorothy pooled her children's allocation into the family's meat allowance. This was not illegal. The government issued separate books for every child, precisely to ensure additional nutrition for growing bodies. But what the government issued, citizens could reallocate. Hundreds of thousands of families did. The youngest children received less milk than assigned. The working fathers received more meat. The math was heartbreaking and necessary. The Federal Reserve's 1944 Wartime Household Survey documented this practice in 67% of surveyed families. The OPA knew of it. They did not prosecute. To prosecute would mean imprisoning mothers for trying to feed their families. Instead, they accepted the unofficial reallocation as the price of avoiding civil uprising. The government issued the coupons, the mothers issued the orders. A Gold Star widow in Charleston, South Carolina in 1944 discovered something by accident. Her ration book was falling apart. The cheap paper was deteriorating. Stamps were literally falling loose from the binding. When she came to the butcher with a handful of loose meat stamps, she expected to be turned away. Instead, the butcher smiled. "Happens all the time," he said. He stamped each one and rang the sale. She realized, standing there, that this was the loophole everyone was using. The OPA had mandated that coupons only be valid if they were still bound in the book, but books fell apart constantly. The paper was newsprint quality. Every book that weathered the year naturally generated loose stamps. The government tried to fix this in 1944. They required shopkeepers to tear stamps from books themselves, never accepting loose ones. But enforcement was impossible. Fewer than 3,000 OPA investigators covered the entire country. Local butchers had relationships with their customers. When a customer claimed stamps fell out, the butcher looked the other way. The government had no manpower to prove otherwise. It was not contraband. It was just what happened when you printed ration books on tissue paper. A woman in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, named Clara, worked at a steel mill from 1942 to 1945. She earned $29 a week. Her husband was in the South Pacific. She had no one to spend it on but herself and her teenage son. She banked $12 every Friday, without exception. The other $17 went to rent, food, and coal. When the war ended in September 1945, she had accumulated $1,564 in a savings passbook, untouched, bearing only her name. The Federal Reserve's 1946 post-war survey found something remarkable. American women who managed households alone during the war years had savings rates 3.2 times higher than households with 2 adults present. They saved not because they earned more, they earned less. They saved because there was no one there to spend it. The money had nowhere to go but into an envelope or a passbook. That money became the down payment on the American house in 1946. That money became the 1950s. Her husband came home to a paid mortgage deposit. He did not know she had been banking his absence like it was currency. A Rosie the Riveter in Mobile, Alabama, who worked at a shipyard in 1943, kept a chart on her refrigerator. It showed point values for 47 different canned items. One week, a can of peas was 8 points. The next week, 11 points. The week after that, 14 points. The variation was not random. It was based on supply. When government planes needed aluminum, canned goods processed in aluminum containers went up in points. When copper was needed for ammunition, copper-lined cans went up in points. The housewife was not managing food, she was managing metallurgical allocation. The Office of Price Administration published point schedules every 14 days. They did not explain the changes. A woman had to intuit that a jump in pineapple points meant enemy bombing had disrupted Hawaiian supply chains. A jump in canned tuna meant fish was diverted to military rations. The smartest housewives read the points like a weather map. They showed you where the war was. A can of peas, 8 points. A can of pineapple, 20 points. A single trip to the store required you to understand 3 languages: English, points, and metallurgy.
Every woman in America in 1942 received a directive: save your rendered fats. This was not optional, it was patriotic. When you cooked meat, you poured the fat into a special tin. When the tin was full, you took it to the neighborhood collection point. The fat was used to make explosives. Everyone understood this. Everyone complied. But what the government did not know was that thousands of housewives were not giving all of it. A Cleveland housewife in 1943 named Margaret saved the fat, yes, but she clarified a portion of it first. She heated it slowly, strained it through cheesecloth, and stored it in a glass jar in her cold cellar. The rendered lard lasted months. She used it to make biscuits on days when her butter ration was exhausted. The biscuits cost her almost nothing. They were pure protein and calories for her growing sons. She gave the rest to the government, but that one jar, that was hers. It was not stealing. Fat was not rationed. The government's claim on it was patriotic, not legal. The Office of Price Administration had no grounds to prosecute a woman for keeping the byproduct of her own cooking. In 1944, the OPA discovered something alarming. Stamps were being traded in a shadow market. A woman with too many milk coupons would trade them to a woman with too many sugar coupons. This was barter, not selling. No money changed hands, no crime was committed, except that it violated the logic of the entire rationing system. If stamps could be traded like cards, the equal distribution meant nothing. The government tried to stop it by requiring that all stamps be torn directly from the ration book by the shopkeeper. No loose stamps accepted, no exceptions. But the implementation was chaotic. In some stores, shopkeepers used dull scissors and tore the stamps in half. In other stores, the tears were too clean, leaving loose margins. Stamps that should have been bound were still usable. Within months, the OPA gave up enforcement on small-scale trading. They focused on the big fish: organized crime forging entire coupon books, cattle rustlers stealing livestock, butchers bribing inspectors for under-the-counter meat. The small housewife trading 3 milk coupons for 2 sugar coupons was beneath their notice. Fewer than 3,000 investigators for a nation at war could not possibly care about neighborhood barter networks. It was not legal, it was not quite illegal, it was just what happened when the government tried to control 140 million individual daily decisions. In Detroit, Michigan, a man was arrested in 1944 with 400 gasoline ration coupons. He was trying to sell them for $57.50. When authorities examined them, they discovered something unsettling. More than 200 of the coupons were counterfeit, high-quality counterfeits, professional forgeries. This was not a one-man operation. This was an organized crime syndicate. Across the country, from New York to Los Angeles, criminal organizations were running coupon forging operations as aggressively as they had bootleg alcohol during Prohibition. In some cities, the forgeries were so good that retail stores could not tell the difference. They only knew something was wrong when inspectors caught them and fined them for accepting counterfeit stamps. The government never released exact numbers on how many counterfeit coupons were in circulation. Official estimates suggested anywhere from 3% to 11% of all stamps in use were forgeries. This meant that for every 10 shoppers in line at the butcher, one might have counterfeit coupons in hand. The OPA knew this and could not stop it. They did not have the laboratory equipment to authenticate stamps at scale. They did not have the investigators to track forgery rings. They accepted that crime was a tax on rationing. Washington issued the coupons. Organized crime printed them. The Office of Price Administration ran a study in 1943 that shocked economists. They tracked two groups of housewives. One group planned their meals around ration points every Sunday. The other group shopped whenever they felt like it, buying what they wanted and checking points afterward. The difference in food waste was dramatic. 34% less waste in the planning group, equivalent to an extra $2.20 per week in effective grocery budget. This was not magic, it was constraint driving clarity. When you know you have exactly 48 points for the week, you do not buy a can of beans on Wednesday that you do not need. You map out 7 dinners on Sunday. You plan to the coupon. Waste becomes impossible. The War Production Board incorporated this finding into propaganda materials aimed at housewives, but they did not present it as budgeting advice. They presented it as patriotic duty. Waste is theft from the soldier. Plan your meals, save the supplies, feed the troops. What they were really showing was something else entirely, that constraint breeds efficiency, inefficiency breeds savings that transform families into financial units. A factory girl in Lowell, Massachusetts named Josephine started work at a textile mill in 1942. She earned $26 a week. She had never had money before. Her family was poor. By 1945, she had saved $1,103 in a war bond account. When her fiancé came home from Europe, she had not just a down payment on a house, she had proof that she could build something. The government's war bond campaign was supposed to be patriotic, buy bonds, support the troops, but what actually happened was economic. Women who had never controlled money in their lives suddenly had paychecks. They had nowhere to spend it. Rationing saw to that. Factories produced only military goods. No new cars, no new appliances, no new clothes beyond your coupons. So they bought bonds. These bonds did not earn much interest, maybe 2.9% annually. Women did not buy them for a return. They bought them because it was the only place their money could go, and it stayed. Every bond was a promise that the war would end and something would be waiting on the other side. Her husband asked her in 1946 where all the money came from. She pointed to her passbook. She saved it, she said. He couldn't understand. In his world, men did the saving, but there had been no men, only absence, and absence had taught her that money was arithmetic, not magic. In 1943, something extraordinary happened in the American West. Cattle rustling, thought to be dead since 1900, made a comeback. The cause? Black market meat. Illegal meat brought more money than legal meat. A rancher could sell a steer to a government-approved packing plant at ceiling price and make $12. He could sell the same steer to a black market dealer for $48. The incentive was irresistible. Ranchers began losing cattle, not a few head, hundreds, thousands. In Texas, in Wyoming, in Arizona, organized rustling gangs operated with the same sophistication as they had in the 1880s. And sometimes, when ranchers caught them in the act, what followed were actual gunfights, in the tradition of the Wild West. In 1943, in wartime America, the black market for meat was so lucrative that federal investigators could not contain it. They focused on the urban butchers, the city dealers. The ranchers in the hills were beyond their reach. The government never released exact numbers on casualties from cattle rustling disputes. Some historians estimate that more men died in black market meat wars than in some actual combat zones. The war was fought at home, over a commodity that should have been scarce at all, if the rationing had been designed better, if the price ceilings had been set higher, if bureaucrats knew something about actual supply and demand. The government controlled the market didn't care.